Well, once again, how fun. NRB Chronicles as we're sitting here on the convention floor in 2022, and how fun. I have Missy Maxwell Horton. Is it? Did I pronounce it
It's
right?
Missy Maxwell Horton. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
you
says
did.
Horton, but it looks like Wharton. But it's
Yeah,
actually it is Wharton. That's why it looks like Wharton.
that's awesome.
That's why it's Missy Maxwell Wharton because it is
Because
with a
it is.
W. And
Yes.
you got to love the title of this book, which we've talked to her before. But don't mess with this mama, and risking it all to rescue our daughter. And I remember this story from a couple years ago. But from what I understand, you've been on a real adventure since the last time we talked, Missy. So tell me what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, I was all ready and set to release this book, and 2 weeks into it, 2 weeks before we were launching, of course we had a pandemic happen. So we had to cancel everything, and we had to do it online, live stream. And but God was
Oh, that
good.
would be right because when I did this interview,
Yes.
it was like right before the pandemic hit. I
Yeah.
remember like we did the NRB and 2 weeks later the whole world
The
shut
whole
down. We
world
were going to
shut
flatten
down.
the curve.
We were. We gave them our 2 weeks, and then they gave us 2 weeks more, and then 2 weeks more. Yeah. So so that's what happened, and but it was God's perfect timing even in the release of my book, because what we discovered about our book is it is about walking in authority and saying no to fear and yes to love. And so during that time we were able to go on probably over 100 podcasts and just talk about the love of God, and how we don't need to fear. Fear is false, false evidence appearing real. Everybody, I think, knows that acronym. Um, but it also is, where is your trust? Is it in the Lord? Is it in the God who promises, just like in our story, He promised that we would would bring favor home, and we trusted Him, and sure enough, you know, things happen. So that's what's happened, and we've just been really excited. The Lord's been good. This book has won a lot of awards, and I don't think it's because of me. I think it's because He just created a great story.
And so I know it's been a while, so I know our listeners are like, so what happened? Like, don't mess with this mama. It just begs to tell you what happened. Why was somebody trying to mess with this mama?
Well, they had my husband and I went to Ethiopia when we found out our adopted daughter of 6 years old, had been taken out of the orphanage and put into a false foster care system, which we had to hurry over there. We were the last flight out of Dulles International Airport before Hurricane Sandy hit. And so we flew over there and did a rescue mission. And we were able to rescue her with the help of her aunt, and we got her there, and suddenly our agency, the embassy, the immigration, everybody started turning against us, and they started saying that we were the human traffickers, which we were not. But we had to stay because they had taken her visa and passport when we tried to leave at immigration. We were surrounded by immigration officers, and they took her visa and passport. We knew that she would get into the hands of a wrong type of man that wanted her for wrong reasons.
Right?
Hmm.
And as I recall, and it's been a while, your husband and you, it put you in a very
Yes.
crazy place.
Yes, we ended up having to hide because they were trying to basically kidnap her back. The agency was.
So you had the baby.
We had her. We had her name's Favor, so we had Favor. We had done the rescue, and then they turned against us. And so we kept her, and we were told to hide out and not to let her out of our sight. So we did. And of all places, a person who had seen my first adopted child, Shawit, and taken a picture of him and used his picture to raise money to become missionaries in Ethiopia, just happened to get there 1 month before they were supposed to, was right when we came.
Right?
So she saw my post on Facebook where I said we didn't get out of immigration. We don't know what God's doing, but we're not going to leave our little girl here. So we are going to make sure, because we knew if she got in the hands of this man, she would either end up dying, as everyone had who had gotten to him, or trafficked. So we stayed and we kept her out of danger. We fought for her every day. We would go to the court system to prove our innocence and to prove that our intentions for her was just to give her a family. That is it, and love her, raise her. So that's what happened. And but the funny thing is well, it's not funny, but we ended up hiding out in the middle of radical Islam in Ethiopia. And so we were at a 8-acre compound that held Christian missionaries, and that's where this person was. And they were blessing the community there, but it was surrounded by radical Islam.
So this person on Facebook,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
is obviously an interesting connection that God provided for such a time as this.
Yes.
But the adventure was far from over. And, to some extent, I guess you're going to have to read the book to get all the details,
Oh,
because
it's got a lot.
it's called Don't Mess with This Mama, Risking It All to Rescue Our Daughter. Again, Missy Maxwell Wharton is the author. And so I'm interested, since you prolonged because of COVID, right? It's
Right.
interesting. You had this hurricane that caused this, and you get out the
Uh-huh.
book, and now you got COVID.
I
And
know.
so you see that, like, there's a certain pattern that shows up in.
Let's hope it's over.
Who knows? Because it's just whatever God has in mind.
Yeah.
But how's your daughter?
Favor is amazing. She's going to be 17 next week. She is a power.
17.
17 now, and she is a powerhouse. She wants to be an attorney. And the girl can argue you underneath the table. So I have no doubt she's going to be an attorney that will do good things. She wants to go back to Ethiopia and fight for the orphans, actually.
Wow. And so she understands her story, right? Like,
Very
she
well.
knows what actually took place.
Mm-hmm. We now have found out that she literally knew that we were battling for her. So she knew.
How old was she when you were?
She was 6 years old when we were battling to take her home and rescue her.
So you're saying she knew before you actually picked her up, or she knew?
No, she knew. She knew something was. She saw what happened at the airport at immigration, and she saw the people surround us and take her visa and passport. So she saw all that happen, and she noticed that we grabbed our stuff and we went into hiding suddenly. So she told the people who she spoke their language, because she wasn't speaking English yet. She said, God has given me this family, and I am very thankful because they love me enough to fight for me. So, and it was a David and Goliath tale. We found out later that the whole city knew about it, and everywhere we went, they would refer to us as the Deborah Bahan case. And they would say, "Oh, the Deborah Bahan case. You stayed and you fought." And that encourages me right now with what we're going through as a nation, because we need to stand and continue to fight as far as with praying and standing up for what's right, all those things. It's just coming back around. And I suddenly recognized that we were sent for this time in history. It's like God looked around and said, okay, who can I trust in this time in history to stand up and do my will and to bring forth my kingdom in this hour? And I look at all the people here even, and I'm thinking, all of us, we're sent right now.
Yeah, like you were sent specifically.
Yeah.
Like God knew I could trust this family with this precious life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And because it all makes an impact in so many different ways. Like, oh my goodness.
One life at a time.
One life at a time in so many different ways. And then he uses the story to encourage other people that may find themselves in some other fight, but to realize sometimes you just got to take it and say, hey, I'm going to follow where God takes me here, in spite of the fact that I might be breaking what might be they consider the law, or they might be considered whatever they want to consider, but I know this is what God has in mind. And so let's just go back for one more minute to those moments where I'm guessing you sensed that this is where I draw the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, okay, my story started with God showing me a picture of her 2 years before I ever was introduced to her. So I believe that was a key. And then he had a man encourage us with 2 words. He said, I really believe God is telling you, you need to hold on to Ephesians 3:20 and Philippians 1:6. I'll be faithful to complete what I started, and more than you can ever hope or imagine is what he will do for us. Ephesians 3:20. So we held on to those promises. Well, that same man, when we arrived in Ethiopia after being tossed and turned in Hurricane Sandy, he walks out of the elevator of our hotel in Addis Ababa. He had just been working with Heidi Baker, and their airplane just heading to Rome suddenly decided, we don't have enough room at Rome. We're going to drop you off at Addis Ababa. And to think that that whole plane full of people had to go to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, instead of Rome, just for me to see him, and he prayed over us. Did I ever tell you what he prayed?
No.
Okay, so he sees us in the hotel lobby. And he comes over and he says, are you stuck here because of Hurricane Sandy? And we said, no, we flew over Hurricane Sandy to get here to rescue our daughter. He said, oh man, we need to pray about this. So he grabs my hand and he's praying with his wife and me, and my husband's checking in. And he just begins to pray. Lord, I thank you that you are going to give him favor in this situation. Father, I see favor walking before him. And Father, your word says that you have gone before us and you will open the door. And Lord, I just keep seeing that you are going to give them favor. And I start laughing after about the 4th time that he says favor.
I can imagine.
And I said, did I tell you what her name was? And he said, no. And I said, her name is Favor. And he said, oh, God is so good. He said, I just kept hearing, tell them I've got this. They are going to have favor. They are going to get favor and take her home. Yeah. And he's like, well, surely they didn't name their daughter Favor.
And what a cool thing for me personally. When I hear that, it reminds me of maybe about 5 years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago actually, that everywhere I went, somebody was talking about grace, and the pastor at the time was doing he was going to preach a year on grace, and it had me so confused. I was like, what does grace mean? Because people would say her grace, or you're going to say grace, and you got this, and I'm like, what does grace mean? And I heard him preach this sermon on grace, and it seemed so different than that sermon on grace, and I couldn't get a grip on it. And so I decided to, man, I've got to figure out what grace is. I just do. This is going to sound funny to you, but it works. Okay, so I'm a grandfather, and my granddaughter is watching, and I've been studying this, that it means favor. It means favor. Okay, and so I'm watching. My granddaughter wants to watch Barbie, the Mermaid Princess. Okay, and so I'm watching Barbie, the Mermaid Princess. My listeners are used to my craziness.
I like it.
And Barbie it's a typical story of, she's a princess. The evil Ursula type character has stolen her away from the king. She grows up under Ursula, and then she gets invited back to the palace. But she has a very special power. She can put pearls on. Have you ever seen the episode?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so she's going towards the palace, and she comes across the stonefish. Right, and the stonefish is he's got poisonous spikes all over him. And his name is Spike. And as soon as Little Mermaid and her little flounder buddy come up, whatever it was, the Spike, who's got this real squeaky voice, is like, you can't come near me because I can poison, one touch of my deadly whatever. But Barbie treats Spike with complete grace. Like, in spite of the fact that he's being mean and nasty and all this stuff, she's like, oh, well, what a strong voice you have, then, Spike. You need to be nice to your fellow fish. And she just still treats him like he's her favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm watching her do that, and all of a sudden it hits me. That's grace. And this princess has grace. Like, she's treating this horrible fish like he's a really good guy, in spite of the fact that he doesn't seem to be a really good guy. That's grace. And then all of a sudden it hit me that in John chapter 1 it says, right, Jesus is full of that stuff. Like, yeah. I've been with people that as soon as you're in your presence, that they think you're their favorite. You
Yeah.
can just tell they treat you like, oh man,
Yeah.
like I can feel this person really likes me. Like I can feel the favor just in being in their
Yes.
presence. And I had this pastor that, like, man, to be in his presence, you just felt like, man, this guy loves
He
me. In
loves
spite of
me.
that, like I feel so loved. And I thought, that's it. When you're in their presence and you feel absolutely loved, that's grace. And you take that and multiply it by 80,000. That's to be in Jesus'
Yeah.
presence, because you're going to feel like you're his absolute
You're his
favorite.
favorite.
And so I redid Isaiah 61 in my own way. And I said, okay, so this is the year that we declare that Robbie is my favorite.
I like that.
And so when you say her name is favorite, for me, I did, we've done the
Okay.
interview before, but I'm thinking, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful concept. Because to me, one of the biggest ways you can impact anybody, anytime, anywhere, is to treat them like they're your
They're
favorite.
your favorite. Yeah. Just like Jesus does us.
He
I know.
does, he does. So
I know. Me and my girlfriends have an argument. I'm his favorite. No, I'm his favorite. I'm his favorite. He's told me.
So Missy Maxwell Wharton,
Yeah, you got it.
the book is Don't Mess with This Mama, and it's all about favor, who's going to
Yes.
be an attorney. And oh, that's just awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
that
welcome.
was very fun.
You're welcome. And my website. You want me to tell you the
I
website?
I do.
It
How
is
do you?
Missy Maxwell Wharton, WORTON at it's at .com.
MissyMaxwellWharton.com.
.com. Yes.
And you can get the book, Don't Mess with His Mama.
Yes, absolutely.
Was there something else you wanted me to say?
Oh,
You've got another book coming.
I do. It's actually birthed out of Don't Mess with This Mama, called Walking in Authority, Choosing Love Over Fear.
And it's got a beautiful title. Oh, my goodness. Walking in Authority, Choosing Love Over. So you got a new book. When's that coming out?
That's coming out this summer.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
And it's just sharing exactly what you were talking about, how the more you love, the less fear you have. And that's what is going to win this war. Is love will always. Love, grace, faith, those are the things that will win the war.
Wow. Again, MissyMaxwellWharton.com.
Thank you.